Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Unit 5 discussion today. We're going to be talking about assembly and packaging techniques here in sterile processing. Hope you guys are doing well. So some of the objectives for this particular lesson, we're going to talk about the purpose for some of these wrapping techniques, the different materials, the techniques in which you would use to wrap certain items. And I'm going to demonstrate some of those techniques with you in a video. Sometimes I think it's easier to see it than talk about it. So here are some of your assignments for this week. It looks like a lot, I'll agree with you, but there's just a couple of 10-point quizzes, maybe a couple more than normal. So just keep on top of that. You guys are doing a great job at getting everything submitted. You really are. I have finished grading your decontamination videos you guys have uploaded. If you didn't upload one, I went ahead and put in the 0, and you probably noticed it dropped your grade significantly. It's because the way the grades are weighted, that grade is not in the same category as your discussion posts or your quizzes. It's in a whole different category that has a heavier weight to it. So putting in a 0 for that really dropped some of you. So any like special assignment like that, the videos, the MSDS research paper that I'm about to grade, those things take a good chunk of your grade. So be very careful in that you're turning those in. You can still go back and turn it in, even if you haven't already. Okay, so I want you to get those in. I want you to get those points. So I don't want to see you guys fail. So just keep on top of those. You guys are doing a great job. And don't forget to go back and respond to 2 of your peers for your discussion post. That is something I think I take the most points off for. Is I think maybe by Sunday you just forget. So make sure you go back and do that. All right, so quick question. How do instruments go from decontamination to being used in the operating room? There's quite a few more steps involved between those two things. And some of you mentioned it in your decontamination video there at the end. What happens after you've scrubbed them and got all the gross debris off? Some of you, I think, skipped a few steps and said they go straight into straight into the sterilizer and straight, into being packaged. Don't forget there's a step in between, okay? After you've taken it out of those 3-sink scrubbing process, it has to go through the washer decontaminator so it's safe to handle with bare hands. I think some of you may have forgotten that step. So it has to go through that particular decontamination machine, and then it comes out on the other side, usually is how it's set up, into the clean side of the sterile processing department. That, like this lady here, is able to touch those instruments now with bare hands because they are safe for use, or safe for handling, I should say, not use. That way they can repackage this tray, make sure everything is there, nothing's missing. They can put things in that are missing. So that's the step in between. And from here, once everything is assured, make sure it's all there, put in that little chemical indicator, then it can be packaged appropriately and put into a sterilizer. Okay, so there's quite a few steps still. So let's talk about pack preparation. How do you make sure that you have all the things that you need here? So a lot of those, like that tray that in the previous slide, it's kind of hard to see, but this piece of paper most likely has everything needed in that tray. So a lot of facilities, or that piece of paper off to the side, a lot of facilities have something that can be printed off, literally checked off by the person packaging it as they're going through the tray, like a double check. And then that paper with everything listed can be put into this tray and sterilized. Some facilities might do it just strictly digitally, but at least around here, we still do a lot of the paper count, or what we call pick sheets, available. So you'll see those a lot in trays. How do they know what's in the tray? So a lot of times the surgeon will either say, okay, these are the things I use the most for this particular surgery. This is what I want in this tray. Some facilities will have surgeon-specific trays. It'll say Dr. So-and-so's tray. You know, some facilities are okay with doing that. Sometimes they just keep it generalized, like these are our laparotomy trays, these are our thyroid trays. And then anything else specific the surgeon may want could be opened separately. Maybe it's peel packed in a single item package for that surgeon. So it may just depend on your facility how that works out for you. Just to remember, before you start packaging everything in those trays, all items have to be dried except for lumens. Okay, just your hemostats, your Kellys, your Richardsons, whatever. All of those have to be dried before they get put into a sterilizer, with the exception of lumens like your Fraser suction or your Yankauer or your pool tip. Those need to have a little bit of fluid in it so the steam will penetrate the entire inside of the lumen. While you're putting these trays together, also check for these: cleanliness, functionality, damage. Everything is present that should be. So it's kind of important to know your instruments. So you know if an instrument might be a take-apart instrument, it might have multiple pieces, and knowing if those pieces are missing, it's very important. So instrument inspection is super important, and you're always going to follow those IFUs, those guidelines. So the tray itself also has to be has very specific requirements. So certain trays have to be, how do I say, have to be arranged a specific way. Some trays are just a metal, we call it a casket with holes in it that allows the steam to penetrate that tray. But in general, you want to make sure you're not overcrowding the trays. Just like we talked about loading the sterilizer. You don't want to overcrowd it because then the steam cannot reach all the areas. Same with how you're loading your trays. And this is an important one, keeping it under 25 pounds. It's usually the max, and it's pretty heavy for a tray. Think about, you know, pulling it off the shelf or your surge tech picking it up and putting it on their bag table. So under 25 pounds ideally. And you want to package them in a way that protects the instruments from damage. So again, we've talked about this, putting heavy on the bottom and light things on top so you don't damage your delicate tipped forceps or scissors, whatever. And then always double check that your hinged items remain unclamped, because as you're stringing them or putting, you know, your hemostats on the stringer, they have a tendency to just magically clamp themselves, it seems like. So go back before you close the lid and double check that they are not clamped. They can easily become just one ratchet shut. So if that happens, it's contaminated because the steam is not going to penetrate inside that clamped area. And also remember fan, okay? We talked about this in the previous slide, but functional, accurate, neat, FAN. Keep everything functional in an easy, you know, functional way, accurate. You've checked that list, and it is neat. Your surge tech will definitely thank you. So I mentioned the chemical indicators there. You could see one at the beginning when they were packaging that implant tray, actually. Some look like this. These are called chemical indicators. It's a type of quality assurance measure. It is making sure that that particular tray went through the sterilization process. Now, it does not indicate that sterility has been met. It is a common misconception. So yes, it indicates that it went through the process. The process, the temperature, the pressure, the steam, whatever, has all been met. Those parameters were achieved. But it doesn't necessarily indicate that it is sterile. The only way to indicate whether something is sterile or not is through the biological indicator. That's your separate little vial that can grow a particular spore, a bacterial spore, like Bacillus stearothermophilus or Bacillus atrophius. Those are your biological indicators. Now, if nothing grows in those particular vials, then it's sterile. That's the only way to indicate that. Even still, we have to include our chemical indicators to show that it went through and the conditions were met in every single pack, every tray, every peel-packed item. It is so important. I can't stress that enough. And your surge tech, as they open this, is going to be checking these. They're going to check to A, make sure they're present, and B, they're going to check this gauge. It may not look exactly like this, but this is a good example. Even this tape right here, This tape, as it's turned black, shows that it went through the process. It's an indicator tape. So if the black is in this reject section, even just barely, I would question this one. Yeah, it's a fail. Even if it were right on the line, I'd probably still question it. And when in doubt, we throw it out. So they're going to check for this. If it's a multi-level tray, most facilities, and for good reason, should require you to put a chemical indicator on every level. Multi-level trays, especially when you get into things like orthopedics, neuro, they have multi-level massive trays. That's why I never liked ortho neuro personally. I was always an ENT fan, but anyway, you want to make sure that even on the bottom level where it might be the hardest for that seam to reach is reaching those hard to reach areas. So that's why they do that. So let's talk about some of our packaging materials. There's three main types of packaging materials. You have your woven fabrics, rigid containers, and different peel packs. You've practiced with the peel packs already, I think. You had to pick a couple instruments, put them in there correctly. You guys did a great job there. So the woven fabrics, when you see things like this, to me, it kind of screams like certification test question, right? 140 thread count minimum for muslin. That is the specific type of wrapper, muslin wrapper. That is typically 2-ply. Usually it's blue or blue and white. And I have a video of that here in a bit. And then your rigid containers, like I said, we call these caskets in a lot of places. It's got your hard, rigid outer container that your aluminum or metal basket goes into or holds it inside, that you're putting all the instruments in that you've just made, with your list of instruments. They're all neat, they're strung up, they're all there. It has a lid on it that gets sealed up. The lid also has a chemical indicator. And then your peel packs, there's a couple ways you could do this depending on the type of sterilization method. So it's important to check what you're sterilizing and what type of wrapper. So you have a paper plastic combo that's typically good for steam or ethylene oxide. And so sterilant cannot enter through the plastic, go through the paper. So when you're lining up your steam sterilizer, make sure you're positioning it appropriately, like on its side. And then the other option is like a Tyvek type of material, which is good for stearite or ozone. So just watch what you're sterilizing and pick the appropriate peel pack. So some people like to see things written out in sequential order. That helps them understand how to do something. Not everybody works that way, so I have both listed here. So this is the wrapping techniques for an envelope fold. If you like this, if you would like to see it like this, maybe pause it or write it down, whatever you need to do to remember it, of how the exact steps of an envelope fold wrap. So you could read it this way, or I'm a visual learner. I think a lot of people are visual learners. So this is a good video. I actually have two different wrappers of how to do this envelope fold. So pay attention here. Hopefully that showed you, that's exactly really what the steps were on the previous page. Exactly step by step how to get those corners tucked, they make it look really easy. I always end up like using my entire body to try to get every folded just right and tight and neat. But they make it look really easy. I have a lot of sterile processing tech friends who say they even fold their Christmas presents like that now. So it just becomes second nature. Go to the next page. So this is a different type of wrapper. This one is called the Smart Fold wrapping system. It's very similar to the previous one, but it has these extra little tabs that are a little bit more, you could say, ergonomically friendly. So you don't have to use your elbows or your entire body. So a lot of facilities, I think, are transitioning to something similar.
So how does SmartFold work? Let's look at it once again, step by step. Select the correct size and grade of SmartFold for your tray. SmartFold comes in a range of sizes. Once you've laid out the wrap with the blue area away from you, position the tray for wrapping. Place the front edge of the tray at the reference line, not at the edge of the white area. Both sides of the tray should fall within the blue reinforcement zones. If both sides do not fit within the blue reinforcement area, select a larger or smaller size of SmartFold. Begin folding as you normally would, bringing the wrap up and over the tray so that the front side of the tray is covered all the way to the work surface. Hold the corner lightly and tuck and fold the side in as usual. Now pull the side tab up and over the top of the tray and secure it with the positioning strip. The strip will keep the tab in place while you complete wrapping. Repeat the process from the other side, again patting the side tab into place on top of the tray. Bring the outer ends of the flaps together, like this, or overlapping. SmartFold's ergonomic design features keep the fabric in place without elbows or awkward bending and twisting. Now, tucking the front corners slightly, reach over and pull the blue section up across the top of the tray. Note that the top section is less bulky for a nice, neat closure while still providing a full 3 layers of protection to the tray. Tuck the front and under, neaten the edges, and tape with indicator tape as usual. Now process your SmartFold package for sterilization, exactly as you would with one step. SmartFold has been approved for both pre-vac steam and EO processing. Finally, transport and store trays wrapped with KimGuard SmartFold, just as you do packages wrapped with KimGuard and KimGuard One-Step Wrap. Halyard Health offers a knowledge network education unit on tray handling through our Excellence in Sterile Processing series.
I'll go ahead and end there, but that shows you the different types of wrappers, the different techniques. As you can see, I think it was probably a lot easier for the person wrapping. You don't have to use your elbows, and it still comes out nice and neat. And notice they're wrapped in a way that allows the person up in the OR, the surge tech or circulator, whoever, to open it in a way that allows it to stay sterile while they grab the item. So, it's folded a very specific way for that reason. When the person upstairs or wherever in the OR is opening that, and they're not sterile, they're opening away from them first, and then side to side, and then closest to them last. So it's wrapped that way for a reason. Okay, just keep that in mind.
Talk to your Halyard rep if you would like to receive this program in your facility.
What's that? So this little video is talking about identifying tears or wraps, or how to prevent those types of mistakes or contamination once it has been wrapped. So handling techniques are very important. That way you don't completely undo everything you've just worked so hard to do. It has to be completely reprocessed if it goes through this with a hole in the wrapper. So, it's time saving, cost saving to be able to identify these things early and prevent them. Prevention would be ideal, right?
Welcome to the Kimberly-Clark Healthcare Knowledge Network presentation entitled Sterilization Wrap, tear identification and handling technique. This is one of our Excellence in Sterile Processing programs that addresses critical issues in healthcare. At the end of this continuing education program, you should be able to list 3 factors that can compromise the sterility of a wrapped package, identify the types of tears that can occur in wrapped packages, describe the possible causes for these tears, and discuss proper tray handling technique that will assist in preventing these tears. After sterilization, factors that can compromise the sterility of a wrap package are moisture, soil, and physical damage. Let's review these factors. After the sterilization process, packages may become moist from causes that include touching sterilized packages before they are cooled, placing the package on a wet or damp surface, carrying the package tucked tightly under the arm where it can come into contact with the warm, wet armpit, or from handling the package with wet or sweaty hands. Sterile items that become wet are considered contaminated because moisture brings with it microorganisms from the air and surfaces. A second factor that can compromise the sterility of a package is soil, such as dirt, dust, and debris. This soiling may result from causes that include incorrect or excessive handling or from unclean storage facilities. A third factor is physical damage to the package. This can be caused by dropping the package on the floor or another hard surface, through rough handling and manipulation of the package, such as forcing it into a tight storage space, or by stacking heavy packages. Packages that are wet, soiled, torn, or dropped onto hard surfaces should be considered contaminated and unsafe for use. If there is any doubt about the sterility of the item, it must be totally reprocessed before it can be used safely. For the purpose of this program, we will focus on the third factor that can compromise the sterility of a wrap package: physical damage. Improper handling is a major cause of physical damage and contamination of sterile packages. One cause of improper handling and stress on the sterilization wrap is heavily weighted trays. For instance, as surgical procedures become more complex, so do the instruments and trays that support them. That often means that the weight of the trays has increased, making it more difficult for sterilization wrap to withstand the greater pressures of heavier instrument sets, especially when handled and moved improperly. Other examples of improper handling include manipulating wrap packages with long fingernails that can rupture the package material, inappropriate storage resulting in crushed, bent, or compressed packages, and dropping packages. Dropped packages should be considered contaminated even if no damage is apparent, since the jarring and compression on landing can force dust and airborne microorganisms into the package. The consequence of physical damage is often a tear or ruptured seals that could result in contamination of the tray contents. Physical damage will most typically occur along the bottom tray edges and at the corners. The following is a review of wrap tears. There are 3 types of wrap tears: cuts, holes, and abrasions. Several types of cuts may occur. A knife cut is almost always straight. The edges are clean rather than frayed and can easily be pulled together to make the wrap appear intact. A knife cut generally occurs on the top few sheets of the first bundle of sterilization wrap when a knife is used to open their packing box. At first glance, a pressure cut may look like a knife cut, but upon closer examination, one can see that the fibers around the edges of the cut have been welded or stuck together. The edge of the cut may feel hard to the touch. Pressure cuts may be seen at the perimeter or outline of the bottom of the instrument tray, or at the top of the instrument tray if trays are stacked on top of one another. Pressure cuts can be caused when all 3 of the following factors are present. The wrap is sandwiched between 2 hard surfaces, excessive pressure is applied, and the tray is pulled or dragged across a smooth surface. Another type of cut is a snag cut. The edges of a snag cut show loose fibers hanging from the edge of the cut, and/or there are individual fibers spanning the width of the cut. The edges of a snag cut are not hard as with pressure cuts. In larger snag cuts, the shape of the cut usually resembles a triangle, with the point of the triangle being where the snag began. Snag cuts are generally due to the tray being pulled or dragged across a rough surface, such as is often found in an older, well-used sterilizer cart. If the tray is very loosely wrapped, snag cuts may occur along the edges of the wrapped instrument tray. They can also occur on other areas of the tray where the wrap is too loose and can be caught by rough surfaces, corners, or edges of objects. Holes are yet another type of wrap tear. A pressure hole may appear as a tiny opening less than 2 millimeters in length where the fibers around the edge of the hole have been welded or stuck together. They are usually found along the perimeter of the instrument tray. This type of hole is caused when the wrap is sandwiched between two hard surfaces, such as when heavy trays are stacked on top of each other. Or a pressure hole may occur when excessive and/or sudden pressure is applied. An example would be when a package is dropped on a hard surface. Another type of hole is the snag hole. This hole is triangular in shape with loose fibers hanging from the edges. A snag hole may result from the wrap getting caught on something, such as a rough surface or a burr on a sterilizer cart. A puncture hole is characterized by frayed or loose fibers attached to the edges of the hole. Typically, this type of hole will not have hard or welded edges. The most probable cause for a puncture hole is an instrument in the tray becoming loose and puncturing the wrap from the inside. If tip protectors are used and instruments are anchored appropriately within the tray, this type of hole can be prevented. The tiniest of holes is the pinhole. This is a very small hole that may be the result of physical damage in which a very small object pierces both layers of a wrap tray. Occasionally, a pinhole may be due to a manufacturing defect and can be seen on one of the sheets of wrap. If the pinhole is visible through both sheets of a wrap package, it is probably due to physical damage and not a manufacturing defect. Another type of hole is a melted hole. This is a large, round, or irregular hole with hard welded edges. A melted hole may be the result of the wrap coming in contact with a heat source, such as a hot instrument in a tray that hasn't been allowed to cool sufficiently, or contact with a light bulb in a storage area. Abrasions are another category of wrap tear. An abrasion appears as a fuzzy surface, sometimes dirty or discolored. It can occur when a wrap tray is repetitively pulled over a hard surface. Trays that are repeatedly handled prior to use often display abrasion. An abrasion hole is the result of extreme abrasion with holes in one or both layers of the wrap. The possible causes are the same as for general abrasion, except that the abrasion was repeated often enough to finally result in a hole. Proper tray handling technique is essential for preventing damage to the packaging and compromised sterility. Education and training programs should include information on proper tray handling technique. Continuing education should be provided at regular intervals to review and update worker knowledge and skills and to maintain their competency.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop it there. That should give you a good idea of how to handle these trays to prevent those things. We want to prevent them as well as identify them if necessary, but prevention is obviously the key here. So if you can recognize those different tears and how they occur, you can prevent them from occurring. So hopefully that was beneficial to you as well.
All
Let me move on
orientation
here.
on the job and in
Wipe this up. But that wraps up our Unit 5 discussion. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. You guys are doing a great job of that. We are, week 5 here, so you only have a couple weeks of, homework, assignments, points to get in. So make sure you're staying on top of it and don't slack off here in the last couple weeks, all right? Have a good day. Bye.